But let me talk to you about Jackson for a little bit.
Sure.
So first of all, so when I was thinking about all of this, so the reason I started reaching out and trying to interview and talk to people and record it and bring it out was, I got some heat because these things are starting to impact people's livelihoods, and the last thing I want to do is not give people a chance to put their side forward and give the team a platform, especially in a year when we don't have paddle sports retailer or those kinds of things. So with the Antix 2, I think the thing that surprised me the most was I really thought it was going to be so much closer to the Nirvana. What made you guys choose to go with a slightly wider platform over a narrower, more aggressive platform?
And how do you mean like a Nirvana?
I thought it was, in my mind, when it was like, okay, it's been 3 years, it's time for a new Antix. I was thinking, we're gonna max out on stern slice, bow rocker, and make this thing as narrow until it's tippy. And you guys went the opposite way. You made it, and it was going to be 9 feet in my head. You guys stayed short, wide, and you didn't go nearly as hard on the bow rocker as I thought you would. It's a great boat, but it never, when I put it down on the ground and looked at it, when Rob finally got one, I was just like, I was wrong. That's not what they did at all.
Interesting. I wasn't thinking of those directions. The last Antix I thought was a lot more playboating than I wanted when we were working on it. I was really hoping for like almost a full creek boat with a squirt stern on it. Almost we talked about putting a creek boat on a fun. And then the idea was going to be to concave the stern of a Zen.
That's what I thought you would do.
Yeah, that's what we were really thinking on that first one. Or a lot of us were thinking, and then some other people got all excited about making a new stubby, and they wanted to make sure that it cartwheeled really well and stuff. And so that's where we ended up with the last Antix was like a mating of those, and the cartwheel was actually a priority in that. And I can cartwheel it; it works pretty good.
Yeah, if you paddle a medium, sure.
Oh, I paddled the small. The small was the one I could cartwheel really good.
Yeah,
sure. I started paddling the small because everybody always wanted to use my medium. And so I would have to choose between the large and small, and the small was super fun. I can, like, even on eddy lines and stuff, you can just smash the bow down and do cartwheels. I mean, just 2 points, but it was fun. And then, this next one came in, and sort of the same thing. We were all excited about having a much bigger bow, more like a Zen, and the much smaller stern.
Mm-hmm.
And but the planning hole, I think everybody wanted more surf. We spent so much time in that last Antix on waves, just because we liked the boat so much that we ended up paddling it on a lot of big water. And invariably on big water, there's waves, and you find these waves that aren't where you thought they were going to be. And suddenly you're surfing and you're thinking, man, I can air screw this boat. I can do a helix in this boat. I can do all this stuff, but I want to do it even better. Yeah. So I think a lot of us really wanted the hull to be a little bit more on point, like a playboat, like an old school playboat, where you can really rip it into a spin and just break it into a side surf and that sort of stuff. Because we all do a lot of playboating at Jackson. All the guys on the team are pretty much playboaters who also do everything else. But yeah, we heard that a lot from some of the Piranha kids, and a lot of people were saying, they kept basically talking about make a ripper.
Yeah, right.
And which
like, you guys were clearly never going to do.
Made a ripper.
Right.
Someone already made a ripper, and you guys are talking about how much you like it. The last thing I want to do is make something like that. And obviously, I'm not the person who decides that sort of thing, but I think that was kind of like what everybody was thinking. Well, they made a ripper, and a lot of people really like the ripper, but do you want to paddle a ripper? A lot of our team did go paddle the ripper, and all the boats that were out to kind of decide. And a lot of them were kind of like, well, in some ways, but it's just such a different boat. It's more of a long boat that you're going to want to paddle fast and down river and do the occasional stern squirt and splat. And our Antix was at the other end of that spectrum of being, not fast, but super playful. Like almost like it's almost like our Antix was a jibber and theirs was like a big longboard that you could also do some tricks with. So I thought they were very different boats. And we wanted smoother, surfier, and creakier, but we didn't want to go towards that. We really wanted it to spin.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, these are things that's why it's worth having these conversations. These little things that come out that you otherwise wouldn't glean,
Like Dane's going to the Zambezi with it. I mean, and he did like a bunch of weeks on the Zambezi in the last one, and I think Bryn was in the Ripper. And when he came back from that trip, I think he was like, "Yeah, the Ripper is a very good boat, but this Antix was so good." And so I think he was thinking more along those lines. And all of us like to play boats so much. I think we could have maybe gotten away with even more volume in the bow. There was some fear about getting so big that you couldn't play the bow at all. And so kind of looking back, I understand why they were doing that, because now every time I'm looping the new Antix as opposed to the old Antix, it loops better, but it's harder to get the bow down. And I'm glad we didn't go too far and just lose the loop altogether. Yeah, because that's like one of my favorite tricks to be able to do in the boat. And the whole way down the galley, you're just like you're just play boating all the time.
The best part about looping a half slice is no one sees it coming. That's the best part.
And you can find new places.
How did you guys decide where you were going to wind up on the spectrum from, like super winged out, squirt boat stern to, puffed up and not really slicey, like the Axiom 9, which really didn't slice. It was more of a river runner. Like, how did you find, what was the criteria? How did you?
That was a tough one. I think everybody wanted creek. We want to be able to run it on harder stuff. And Steven and I do a lot of squirt boating. Dane has done a good bit of squirt boating. A lot of us noticed that the Ripper was staying up a lot longer than we were on the stern squirts. We would get it down and get the spin, but the second one was a little bit harder. I paddled with Shane on the Golly one day, and I believe he was in the mullet. I'm not 100% sure. It could have been the Brat, but I think Party Brat or mullet. But he was just, Shane is such a beautiful paddler. And he got like a double 360 splat in my little splat room below pillow. And I was so stoked, and I put on my Instagram and was super fired up, and I worked, and it was just so hard. And I was just like, I know how to do this. We know how to do this. We should do it. But then, David and EJ and all the guys who do a lot of boats and stuff, they're like, well, these are really different goals. If you guys are wanting it to wing a lot more and actually work more like a squirt boat, where it's actually going to carve and you're going to be able to adjust the angle of the carve as it goes around, you're talking about something that's wide and flat. And you're also saying that you want to be able to, bomb into the notch and not worry about back endering. Right. And those aren't really the same thing. So it was kind of I'm not sure who came up with the idea and put it on the boat, but I was definitely noticing sometimes the squirt starts a little further forwards than you think. And if you can get the stern to start going underwater really early, then it's a much smoother transition to getting it up.
Right. Because then you're waiting for the seam. You're not like behind, you're ahead, and then you get caught.
Yeah, it's like if you get it started, the bow rocker goes up a little bit, the stern rocker goes down a little bit, and now instead of having to drop the stern edge into the oncoming water, which is a pretty tough thing, if it's wide and flat and super low volume, you'll be able to control that. But otherwise, you're likely to catch and flip. But now, if you can get it started and go ahead and I'm looking at the screen now, get it started like that and have the stern just naturally rocks down on its own. So now when you get to 45 degrees, that whole stern has got water going over the top. And now you've got a lot of stability because it's got water on both sides of it. And you go that next little bit, and now you're smoothly back up. So I think that Dave came up with that trick, or someone came up with that trick of going ahead and, keeping the edge nice and high where it's not going to get out of the way, but starting it a little sooner to get that water flowing across the stern, so that when you're wanting that offside edge to start to catch, the whole boat just drops down to make sure that it does. But when you don't want it to catch, if you don't actually lean the wrong way and start into that turn, it's up high enough and you've got enough speed that it just stays behind you.
Yeah, which
I'm really blown away. It was I won't say that everybody was 100% confident with the CADs. And we had all these changes that we thought we were going to be doing to it. Like what you said about the fuller volume, the big fat creek boat in the front. Some people were saying, concave the stern and make it even smaller. There was all this talk about what we were going to do to this boat. And David presents, looks good. It's like, let's try it. And literally, it was really interesting how quiet everyone got the further down the river we got, is what I would say. It was almost like, you always, I don't know who you work with, but anytime we're talking boat in any company that I've ever been with, you've got your preconceived ideas. You're upset about this, you're stoked about this, you've got all these preconceived ideas going into it. I've gotten to where I just try to just erase all of that. I just try to completely forget what we asked for in the boat, all the discussions that went on about it, and just think, it's a kayak. Let's just see what it does. And that really helps me get out of those situations when I can remember to do that. But anyway, so it was really interesting to get the boat. I mean, Dane just, like, in the first day in flat water, he just goes out and kicks it to vertical and spins around like in a stern stall or something. And I was like, oh shit, that's different. And then it's like, but it's Dane, he can just do that.
Yeah.
So we wanted to compare weights. We got Emily in the boat, and Emily just rips it into a stern squirt. And it was like, well, that's weird. And some of us weren't doing it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it took us a little while to kind of figure out that sort of slalomy style instead of the playboater all weight throw.
Yeah.
That idea that you drop the edge and just let it ride and it'll do all the work for you.
Yeah.
Like carving a snowboard or something like that. When you set the edge right, it's over before the turn starts. You've got it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really fun to figure out. And we had a day on the Caney Fork, actually, super low water Caney Fork, trying to get some footage and be able to show it for what it is. And it was just like, yeah, I mean, we're within sight of the takeout. Caney Fork's like an 8-mile run with lots of little rapids. It was super low water day. And we're playing this tiny little eddy line, like right within sight of the car. And then we did like a 600 CFS golly run. An idea that we could paddle a river that nobody would see the boat.
Right.
And so if we had to make major changes, we could. And we were playing last chance at 600 CFS and just having a great time. Like,
that's a good sign.
And then it was kind of like, oh, so whatever it was that people were thinking we wanted, what we know is that this thing rocks the way it is. It's like, it's good. It may not be what he asked for on this and what I asked for on this and what she asked for on this. We didn't necessarily, everyone didn't get what they wanted, but it when you've got it's a winner. What it is a winner. It is big differences. There's lots of boats that aren't my style, but I've got to say, like, it's just a fucking timeless boat. RPM was not my favorite boat, but I videoed it out of it for months, and I was like, this is just such a good boat. I'd been paddling a 270 for a while, so I wanted to do other tricks a little bit more, but I was just like, this is just so easy at everything. And you just know it. It's like, this is like timeless. When people are like, I don't know which of your boats to buy, and I don't fit in this, or I can't get this, and it's like, compare the RPM. It's just a winner. And that's kind of where I felt we were on the Antix 2.
I think that's exactly where you hit it. I mean, I resonate with everything you're saying.
Is there something that it's not doing that you want it to do? And that's where we all kind of like almost, we got to the point, the more we paddled it, the more we thought, I think this is the boat. So that was really cool. It was almost like Dave just hit such a winner with that first thing that we got to paddle, that it was over. Whether it was what everyone asked for, or, there were sides going for smaller, there were cartwheeler, there were sides going more creaky, there were lots of stuff going on, but that was the boat.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest problem for you guys is going to be warranties, because this is going to be the boat that everyone does everything in, and you're going to break them. I mean, Hannah and I, the first time we had a chance to get in the Rob's, demos, I paddled a medium, she paddled a small. We got to the bottom and we ran things. I wasn't thinking lines. I didn't think I was going to run today in this. And this is the boat I've been looking for since I topped out of the Axiom. We just kept coming back to it's just as timeless. It's just a tuned up. And you put them side by side and you're like, I know they didn't do this on purpose, but this is where this came out. It's so close.
To what?
To a Dagger Axiom.
Oh, interesting. Because that's
super close.
The Axiom was such a late hit. I actually got to see the whole Dagger crew and Axiom prototypes and all that stuff. And I asked Snowy about what he thought. And he said, it's a really good boat. I don't know that it's your boat. And I didn't paddle it. I just, I think he knows my style and what I was going to want and stuff. And I was thinking way slicier on the stern.
Oh, yeah.
And he was basically like, no, we didn't really do that. That's not where it ended up. It's a little bit more of a river runner that you can stern squirt. And so it was interesting when that came back around. I mean, how many years did that kind of linger?
9.
Before it took off?
9
I don't
years.
know. Yeah, it was almost like the introduction was flat, and then it kind of did this and it did this, and then all of a sudden people just fell in love with it.
Yep.
So I have paddled one before, but I was not paddling it with the idea that this was a big hit that everybody loved yet.
Yeah, and neither was I. I skipped over it for forever, and then one got left with me.
Yeah,
I couldn't get out of it. But I will say, at the end of it, when I'd finally cracked it 3 or 4 times, and it was just at the end, I squished the stern in it.
You always wait too late.
And that's why I was just like, oh yeah, apples to as close to apples, unintentional as thing as possible. But the biggest difference for me is that the stern on the Antix 2 is a little bit longer, it's a little bit wider. So if you land a spout boof or something like that, or any sort of stern pour, you're going to get that pop and that wheelie away, which can be awesome or it can be scary. But once it's there, the Antix 2 is it has a slow burn, like you're saying. You kind of build into that boat.
I don't know that it's actually a much bigger boat than the old one, but something about the better planing hull and that, man, Dave just knocked the rocker profile out of the park, I think.
I was going to say, you're sitting in the rocker profile way better.
I don't know. It just seemed like when you hit a hole where the old Antix would kind of hit and plane, but the stern would go down and then the water would break over the stern. You got a nice skip sometimes, but it was a fine line between a skip and a little bit too much sink.
Mhm.
And this one doesn't sink so far. I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't sink.
It just
goes
takes
out.
all that planing haul and just carries you right
Yeah.
over. I don't think I've cheated anything in it. I've crashed,
Yeah.
but not more than I should have. But I will say I did get pinned in it. I went under a tree 2 weeks ago in the large, thankfully the large. And it was insanely stable for being wedged under a tree. So
that's the challenge with this boat. And I feel, it's always nice to just enjoy what people say about it and let people say like, oh, I'm going to run everything in this boat. And it's like, well, you need to remember, the wider and flatter the deck, the harder the pin.
oh yeah.
It's not like it's gonna pin easier necessarily, but once it does, it's bad. I haven't pinned it yet. I've definitely done some damage to the boats. I've got very cavalier and freestyling it and just bashed it all over the place. I think the green one that I started paddling the medium, I've repaired 2 or 3 holes on it now, which is great. It's been demoed all golly season. It was demoed and people kept coming back with something wrong. I think anyway, there's a lot of boofs that we landed on rocks and that sort of stuff. And that's just been really fun. So it's kind of, the warranty thing is kind of a weird thing on it because it's almost like I like it so much I don't want to add more plastic. It's like, well, I could add more plastic or I could just make sure and be a little more careful and just really enjoy this 34-pound boat that you like to run the green in. If it was a green local and I was going to be running it 100 days or something like that, I don't know. I don't know how that's going to go.
Well, I mean, this will be something we're talking about for the next 3-4 years, I think, as much as design, because they are getting lighter. There's no question.
Normally when they make the pre-productions or the protos, the boats are just such crappy builds that are like really heavy and they just don't act the same and stuff. So we got these things in and it was just like, oh my God, this is good. But it was like, is it good because it's 32 pounds?
Right.
And that was a really hard thing to think of. It was kind of like, well, everything's better at 32 pounds. So we added only 2 pounds and it looks like it's stiff enough to be super solid. But I think it was way more fun getting a mold that would mold at 32 pounds and still be a really functional kayak with no thin spots and being able to add weight to make it a little bit, more impact resistant and that sort of thing, rather than usually you're like, it's 40 pounds. How much can we get out of it? And that's not as fun of a game to be playing when you know that there's these thin spots that you're flirting with.
Yeah, when you're worried about breaking off cockpit rims.
Oh yeah, on horse pasture and having like I saw this awesome thread on some group like kayakers over 50 or something, and it was all these people saying, why don't the companies make lighter weight boats? And I was just like pulling my hair out. I was like, oh my God, you have no idea how hard we fight to keep the weight down. It is so hard. It's more money, it's more time, it's more blooms. It's so much more expensive to drop, you drop 4 pounds out of a kayak and you just jacked the number of warranties possibly, but mostly the number of scrap boats you're going to make.
Well, and 1 second, let me show you something. So most people would never know, but this cutting board I made, this is 2.5, 3 pounds of kayak plastic. I mean, that's it. That's all the weight that we talk about when we talk about shedding physical plastic out of a boat, but it's in a curve, so you can't understand what it is.
Yeah.
That much.
Yeah, so it's fun. I think there will be people who need a heavier, burlier, just more plastic in the boat for scraping down low water runs all summer or something like that. But I really like the idea that the market's got this boat for the people who are going to be a little more careful on rocks. You get all that benefit of just being able to move it so much easier and, obviously carrying it and stuff. It's really fun to have the large. I can run the large on just about anything. And it's so light.
Yeah. And it's Yeah, no, the large is like, for me, I'm somewhere between the medium and the large, and I can take the medium out and it's super playful, although still not as playful as between watching Dane and watching Steven's, dealer call and being like, we really focused on play on this. I was like, oh, this is going to be a squirt boat. This is going to be spicy as hell in class 4. And no, Dane's just a beast. And
Yeah.
it's not actually that playful. Like Dane's
yeah, it'll do the work, but it won't if you don't want to.
Where along the line did that wheelie bar come back from way back, or how did that even happen? Like, I look at that and I see like a Mr. Clean.
Oh, that was actually kind of a cool thing. That was another little, I don't know what you would call that. So we're getting pushed really hard to go longer. A lot of people on our team that we talked to, and a lot of dealers and a lot of other people were saying speed. But instead of saying speed, a lot of people actually said longer, make it
9 feet. Has to be 9 feet.
9 feet. And we're all kind of like, no, I don't know about you, but some things I hate about 9-foot boats. I can't close the car door. I can't close the truck top. Mm-hmm. And when I walk with it on my head, it hits the ground all the freaking time. So freaking annoying. If you do head carrying like I do,
but I can see it.
Your head's on the back band. You can tighten the back band as far as you want. But when you're walking on flat ground, it's okay. But as soon as you take one step, the bow hits. Things hit everywhere. Anything longer just feels heavier when you have to carry it because it's so much less nimble on your shoulder. And then when you go to play boat, you just drop the number of places you can play on the Ocoee by a lot.
That's
Ocoee, it's sort of like a benchmarky thing for me because you just can't stern squirt there in a lot of boats. Like I had a big squirt boat and I could do it there, and so I liked it. And then when I got little squirt boats, it was over. They all hit the bottom. So someone came up with the idea of asking, where does this float compared to the last one? And then he showed us. And it was like, oh, we're like lower than the last one. He's like, well, the stern's 2 inches longer, or whatever it was, an inch point something. Dave is very technical. But yeah, and it was a little bit lower. And so then he was like, well, we can fix that. We'll put it will not get in the way of the stern squirt at all. But it'll just make it, once you go vertical, it'll be at the same level as the last one. And that's what we did. It's hard to say because we didn't paddle the other boat nearly as much, but I think it has done what we wanted it to, which was put it right back at that other Antix level when you're stern squirting, open up the door to getting vertical more places, and also having a little bit more leeway on where you can paddle it. And I actually think the rocker profile on this one is just a little bit better anyway, or maybe for some reason I can sit all the way in the back. Like I can sit way in the back seat in this boat and the stern still doesn't sink. So I don't know what like the last one I think had more of a stern kick.
Yes.
So when you got too far back, the whole thing rocked up to here. Mm-hmm. And this one doesn't seem to do that. So I'm not sure if it would have been an issue in this boat anyway.
Well, with this one, when it does do that, it kind of like squirts away. The other one would because of the kick would just stand and like stall at like 30 degrees. This one, like pumpkin seed, like loops out of itself.
Yeah, just a lot like the Zen, or a lot like some other boats. Anyway, the more planning holes we got on North Chick, the more times I started running the meat of every hole. Like first you're like, let's see if this works. So run the meat of the hole. And then after a while, you're like, I think it's easier to go ahead and hit the drop where it's more vertical and where the hole is stiffer and get that skip. Yeah. And that was really fun to be on North Chick the last couple of times in this boat and just be like, this is actually kind of fun. Like I'm almost to the point where a couple of them, I think I could do a trick off it or something. Because the skip is like, it's so easy to get the bow up. And then the skip is definitely going over the boil. I haven't done it yet. Maybe I won't do it, but I want to find somewhere where I can try some little flippy things on smaller drops instead of saving it for the just really big slides or like the stairs at the new.
Yeah, I've had a bunch of times where I went into something and told myself I was going to do it, and then it didn't happen at the bottom.
Yeah, when you're looking at the water that doesn't clear the boil and you're thinking, I don't really want to look into that on this trick. That makes it harder for sure.
Yeah, kiss it on its way by. Yeah, I mean, from my experience, this boat busts through anything, just as long as it's not able to vertically pour on that stern, you're going to be fine.
So far, I mean, I really haven't had a bad. I haven't had it not work yet, which is weird. Dane was saying he feels really confident even grill at 200 in the medium. And I don't know, I don't have that much experience in that rapid, but I certainly wasn't feeling confident. But I think you just got more and more confident with it. And it's been a lot of places. I ran the large down the lower meadow instead of the medium, and I did not regret that decision whatsoever with all that super junky rock. But then I don't know. I guess I'm going to build into it slow. Because I'm really worried about trees and undercuts and stuff like that. Everywhere I've taken it, it's been a lot easier to paddle than I expected.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't gone super aggressive with it yet. I think that wider planing hull allows you to get over things that you don't expect to. That was a really nice feeling to think, I really do not want to surf this right now.
Yeah.
And I just kind of like right on the double drop, just smoked right through there as if it was a good line. Like I would do it again. It was like, oh, I would run that again. It just went straight across that. I didn't go under at all. I didn't sub out, and I didn't turn left right into the sticky part. So that was really surprising because I had no speed and I was literally like going off it backwards and just turned around. But I think that might be part of that, that slightly wider, super big planing hull is if you can get one or two strokes in to get any speed at all, you've got a good chance of having that just deflect you right across things. And that kind of opens doors.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not moving at all, it'll fight you. Yeah. I mean, that was my first real question about the boat was like, to me, that width and the shorter length, that's the whole story to this boat, It
was super fun. I was at some NOC event and it was raining like crazy. And I don't remember if it was COVID or just the storms or wet. Anyway, for some reason, no one came. Like literally nobody came to this event. It was flooding. And I got to sit there and talk to all these boat designer people, and reps and everybody else about boats for a little while because there was nobody else in the building except staff and us. And it was great hearing Chris talk about what he wanted to do with that Ripper, and maybe the Ripper was just out, but he was like all so into the narrow and the fast and the narrow and the fast and the narrow and the fast. And, I was just like, this is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. Cause he's like, oh, so you guys are going to do something like that too. And I was like, no. Yeah, nope. Not where we're going with that, which I think is the right thing for the, you don't make deals with people in the industry. Everyone in the industry is just worried about trying to sell the most kayaks for us, trying to sell more than somebody else. But if you take a step back from that and you realize that I'm a kayaker and you can't make everything that I want to make. I mean, nobody gets to make all the boats they want to make. It's like, oh man, I can't wait to do another creek boat. And they're like, you just made a creek boat. It's like, no, we're ready for it. We're going to do a different one. And they're like, yeah, maybe in 2 years. So that's really hard. You don't get to make all the options that you think that a lot of people would like. And so hearing that, I was kind of like, cool, because we have all these, I know a lot of people like that. They're all about the speed. What they really want is a slalom boat with enough rocker on the bow that they can take it down Little White. And it's like, awesome. Our team is a little bit more like that last one is kind of hard to helix. That's a really different thing. But it's nice that everybody gets one. But yeah, I'm really stoked on this Antix. I can't believe Yeah, I can't believe it was a one prototype and done boat. Dave Knight just knocked it out of the park, and I think a lot of people. Yeah, it's a weird combination of all the different goals for the boat that all came into a really smooth design. So, you know, whether it's the boat that everybody wanted or not, it's a damn good one.
Damn
And
good
I
boat.
really like that aspect to it. It's changed my paddling to more of what it does well, and now I'm yeah, I just keep taking it on slightly harder stuff, and we'll see where it goes from there. We'll see when it gets cold. I might start moving back to the large a little bit.
I
But
bet you do.
why not? I don't know.
I bet you do. It's the large is nice when it's cold. I'll catch you later. Thank you so much,
Good
man.
talking to you, Alex.
Later.